So hi everyone and welcome to week 2 of our bot training. We're going to really be focusing on prompt engineering. And if you were not here 2 weeks ago for the first bot training, don't worry about it. There were recordings that I sent to everyone, but you will get a lot of information today that should help you and help you start making your bot. So I'm going to hand this over to Amanda, who is going to be our presenter today.
And I'm actually going to let Stephanie introduce herself first before I jump right back in.
All right. Oh, sorry. I have my screen. I just got back from vacation, so I am like still in vacation mode. So bear with me, Stephanie Curry. I'm a faculty member at Reedley College in the library, and I've been working with the bots, and I'm delighted to be with you guys today.
Thank you. I don't think, Laura, you gave your official title. You want to officially introduce yourself as well?
I am Lori Levine and I plan professional development and can never remember my official title, to be honest. Now I don't know what I am saying. But I'm the person who plans the professional development. And at the end of this, or actually in a little bit, I'm going to plop a survey in the chat just to get some more information from you all. And I think that's it. I'll hand it back over to you, Amanda. Sorry.
Great. And Kimberly isn't here, right? But it's here, all right. Kimberly Mullins has also been collaborating with us on this training. So she's a full-time counseling instructional faculty at Reedley as well. So we definitely wanted to give her credit for that work. All right, so let's jump back in. As Lori said, don't worry if you weren't here the first week. We're going to do a little bit review, actually a much deeper dive, so not even a little review into the prompt engineering, because before we start building, it's really important that we establish all of those guidelines of how to get our bot to do exactly what we want to, because it's just an exercise in frustration until we get all of those really clear. So we're going to spend a lot of time before we dump into building the bot reviewing those parameters that we had gone over the last time.
Yeah,
Stephanie and Lori are here. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just a reminder that was kind of their homework assignment from the last time was to think about like what was the intention of your bot. Where is it going to go? What is its intention? What is its purpose? And what do you want out of it? And that's kind of what we're going to be trying to figure out how we can create today by doing that prompt engineering.
Absolutely. If you have any questions that come up, Lori and Stephanie are going to be monitoring the chat. Please feel free to raise your hand if you want to ask a question out loud as well. We want this to be interactive for sure. Okay. Welcome back. We introduced ourselves. Perfect. All right. So don't write anything yet. If you haven't done a waterfall activity, I really think these are fun. The first time that I was introduced to it at a webinar, I thought it was the most bizarre thing, but it really is cool to be able to have it. So I'm going to ask a question. Don't type the answer. It is always the temptation for people to type the answer, and I guarantee one person is going to do it. But wait, because I'm going to count. You're going to put your answers in the chat without hitting submit. So put it in the chat right now. But don't answer, or you don't know what the question is. When I count down to 3, we'll have a waterfall. You don't even have the question. So let me give you the question. Don't hit submit. What is your idea for the bot? Put it in the chat. Don't hit submit. I guarantee someone's going to hit submit. Don't hit it. Just put it in the chat. What is your idea that you came up with for the bot?
And it's okay if it's a general idea, right? You don't have to have it all figured out yet. But just something general or something specific if you really get excited and know what you want.
Okay. It's in the chat. I'm going to count to 3. On 3, hit enter, and we're going to have a waterfall. It's pretty cool.
Should we give them a
put it in the
minute?
chat. Huh?
Let's give them a minute.
Oh, okay. Don't hit. It's hard to resist. You ever watch that Dennis the Menace movie where he just has to hit that button? Don't hit submit yet. So is it in the chat? All right.
Thank you, Julie.
Somebody hit submit, huh?
You hit submit saying submit.
Okay. All right. Can I go now? Can I count to 3? All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Go. Hit submit. I gotta hit the chat. Look at you guys, instructions followers. I'm so proud. Although there's 28 people here and I don't see 28 answers.
Yeah.
But now I got to take the time to read it. Very cool.
Oh, Vicky, you were reading our mind. We were thinking about something about the union contract. Yeah.
Very cool.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you guys for playing along. Looks like you have some really, really useful ideas for a bot. So hopefully today is helpful to you in training that bot. You can get some parameters and it becomes a much more efficient way. It's really where that time is going to come, is training it. And if we can help cut down that time by creating ways that you can more efficiently get to an output that's useful, then we definitely want to be able to support and help those ideas. So thank you so much for playing along. So what is our goal today? We're going to define what prompt engineering is. I think most of us are familiar with that term, but we want to level set and make sure everybody understands what we say when we're talking about prompt engineering, the basic principles of prompt engineering. And some of this are going to just be basic. If you're ever working with a GPT, it's good to know this. Some are going to be specifics to the PlayLab modality, but most will be applicable whether you're using a GPT bot in Poe or even a Chat GPT bot. These are going to be very applicable to any of those that you toys or applications that you're going to use. Consider where to apply basic prompt engineering strategies. So when and where, depending on the application you want to use those, we're going to focus in on PlayLab for this and how their structure is in organizing those guidelines. And then we're going to start to build a bot together. We definitely won't get to the full iteration of it, but we're going to be able to see how it interacts with those different guidelines, guardrails, instructions that we put on it to get closer to what we want to produce. And hopefully that's helpful to you as you're building yours and all of those really fantastic ideas that are in there. Okay, so let's jump into what prompt engineering is. And as I mentioned earlier, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Stephanie and Lori will jump in as we go through this. It's definitely a conversation that we want to have, not just a formal presentation. So what is prompt engineering? It's how you give the AI instructions to get to the desired outcome of where you want to get. So that really is a great place to start. And you guys have some super good ideas when you're talking about what you want to build your bot for. Start formulating those into what is the outcome? What do you hope to be able to produce with this bot? That's really going to help you focus in on all of those different elements of prompt engineering. So what is the ultimate outcome you want to produce? And then we can work backwards from there. Those instructions where we get to the outcome, that is what's called this different prompt. And we're gonna work with those. How you design and create prompts, again, has a large impact on the output. So what we put in, what we say for it to do and not to do is going to influence the output that it produces. So a lot of that burden falls on us as the prompt engineer. AI is super helpful and handy to help solve a lot of different problems and help us think through a lot of different concerns, issues, and get support that we might need in different avenues, but it only becomes as good as the engineering that we do on the front end and what we tell it not to do and what to do. So we have to think through that process very clearly. Context is key. You really want to think when you're training a bot. Now, this doesn't apply to just a general AI conversation, but when you're training a bot, you want to think about the specific role the AI is playing. So if you think about it as I'm training a robot to be my helper, what role will that robot be in? What position am I going to put them in? Are they a role of a tutor? Are they the role of a teaching assistant? Are they the role of a aide or whatever it might be? Think through the specific role and then who is going to be interacting with that? Is this going to be a support system for students, a support system for faculty, a support system for classified professionals, a support system for all of those, a support system for people outside of our campus, inside of our campus, encompassing all of that? Those are the questions to think through. Who is going to be interacting with this bot? And who do you want to be very clear that this isn't a support system for them? Because those are also going to factor into the prompt engineering.
Yeah,
Be
Amanda,
concise.
I was just,
Oh, go ahead. Yep.
No, I was just thinking that the audience is really, really important, and it's really essential when you're writing Playbook or any other about defining the audience, right? Because you have to do, if it's an audience for one audience, it might be simpler prompts in the background, right? But if you're doing for multiple audiences, it may be much more complex because you may have to say, like, if it's an instructor, say this, or if it's a student, say this. So if you might want to think about, like, is it you want to try a simple bot first, or do you want to try something more complex? And as it goes on, you'll be building more and more complex bots.
Absolutely. You want to think about structure and organization. Lists are your friends, and we're going to take a look at the example of this in just a couple of slides. Initially, I always thought about interacting with AI as having a conversational partner. And absolutely, when you're having a thought partner and that's the context and what you want to use AI for to have a conversation, that's absolutely fine. But when you're building a bot to provide structured support for a certain audience, creating those instructions in very clear structured lists is going to make the information you're giving the bot much more clear and concise for them to process. So a lot of the conversations in the past have been, yeah, you should be interacting in a conversational manner. I know I've said that multiple times in training. It's a little different when you're training a bot to produce information. Lists and bullet points are going to be a very clear and concise way to provide those instructions. And we'll look at examples of how to take that conversation and put it into a detailed list and bullet point that is helpful for your bot to be able to be trained off of. Fix at the point of error. Like Stephanie had talked about on our part 1, there's going to be a whole lot of iterations that you're going to go through in the process of training your bot. You want to go through and look at one problem at a time and fix one problem at a time. This allows you to be, again, that clear and concise on the instructions that you're giving. So it's going to be a lot of iterations to say, all right, we did a test, I see a problem. I need to go back and fix that problem. Go through, I see a problem, I'm going to tell it how to fix that problem. You want to avoid trying to fix 3 different problems in one set of engineering instructions. Fix the problem, iterate, see if that's resolved, go back, fix the problem, iterate, and see if that's resolved. You can try and fix multiple ones at a time. It's always going to be easier and more clear to the bot you're training if you have that clear, concise instructions one at a time. Be mindful of bias. This is something that we really try and emphasize that every single AI training. AI is trained off of people's interactions. People are biased. The input we put in is biased. So you really want to look at it through that lens. So many different studies have shown if you ask AI, produce me a picture of a doctor, it's going to be a white male. This is inherent of the biases that are in there. So we'll look at ways to structure those prompts in order to produce unbiased products in our bot. Leverage reference, especially in PlayLab, and there's lots of other bot processes or bot applications that allow you to input context and background information. So say it's something that's specific to the college, read the college. It might be beneficial for me to provide it some information such as our integrated college plan, our policies and practices, the contract, whatever it might be that you think is going to help that bot provide some context and information for reference, you want to put it in there. And we'll look at this also later as we're going through and giving it instructions. Maybe you want it to reference one specific piece of information that you gave it. That's where you also want to provide that in your instructions. Negative prompting as well. You want to tell it what it should do, but you also want to tell it things that it should not do. Sometimes this can be very difficult for our brains to process because we're used to saying do this instead of don't do this, and creating those guardrails. We'll look at that again in the process of creating our bot. All of these we're going to dive more deeply into. All right, so again, context is key. So as we go through and training our bot, remember all of these things. Who is the AI supposed to be and who are you designing with? And once we go to building the bot, we're going to return to these slides and walk through. So what is the background? What is the persona of your chatbot? They provide a really great step-by-step guide template in PlayLab for you able to use for this process. So what are you an expert in could be an example, your role, who you are talking to. This is just a template, so you can provide different information in there if you want. Jump in anytime, Stephanie or Laura, if you have anything to add.
No, this is such a key thing. It looks really simple, like you are an expert in what, but I can't tell you how many times I went back and I'm like, maybe I need to tweak this. Like maybe I really need to think this. What is your role? Who are you talking to? And it's like you're telling the AI what it is. And that's the thing. The AIs are so powerful, but they need guidance and they need direction. And it's really important that you give it those parameters, because otherwise it will go wild. Right? We know that it will make up things. It will do things like that. So you want it to be very concise about what you want it to be, and you want to tell it what you want to be. And that's a really important thing to think about ahead of time, and then tell the AI. And again, you may need to tweak it something as easy as your role is, right? Or you're talking to. You may need to restructure this as you're going through and changing things. So everything is iterative.
When you're going and iterating in your bot, you might have to go back, just like Stephanie was alluding to the very beginning. If you notice the presentation that it's providing you, or the information it's providing is not very clear to the role, think about going very back to the beginning. Sometimes we can just focus on those guidelines and guardrails and not think, oh my goodness, it's not understanding what its role is. So you might have to go back all the way to that context and provide that information from the context. All right, so let's take a look at what these examples might be that we don't want to do and what we want to do. So minimal content, and this is what I would be guilty of, is you are a math coach. That seems great. That's who they are. They are a math coach. What more information could they want? And yet here is the impact on the output. We just have the area of the rectangle is length times width. They gave the response that it might want. But look what's happened when we provide more detail in the context. Because we are a math coach, Julie's here. I'm sure there's other math people here. I think I saw Stephen. That could be for anybody. That could be for elementary. That could be for grad students. It could be for statistics students. What does that exactly mean? So look what happens when we provide more information into that background. You are an expert in next generation math standards. I don't even know what that means, but obviously it does. Your role is to provide examples of math concepts using simple language. You see how we're getting very specific as far as the role of who this math coach is. It's still a math coach, but we're giving more specifics to that job description. Think of it as the roles and responsibilities in that job description that we're also familiar with. Your audience, another key part, are teachers who are supporting fourth grade students. That is very different for a math coach than somebody who's supporting community college students, a math coach supporting postdoc students. That's a very different context. And so by providing that fourth grade students, it's also going to make sure it applies those math standards appropriately. So let's see what difference it is by providing a much more detailed context, what that output is going to be. So here is the impact on the output. Imagine your bedroom is a rectangle. To find its area, we multiply its length by its width. It's like counting how many square tiles would cover the floor. That's even difficult for me, and I'm not in fourth grade, so that's hard math. But you see how the language is different than when we backed up and just had, you are a math coach. We've got this very not helpful output. It's because what we put into it, getting more information on the background and that context, it provides us a much more helpful output. All right. So as you're thinking about your own bot, as we go through this, think about, oh, this is how I would change what that role is. So when you put your suggestions or what you were thinking about doing your bot, apply this to what that would mean. What would be the background you would input for your bot? Be clear.
Amanda,
Go ahead,
can I stop you? Because there's a question in the chat, and I think it's really important here. If somebody was testing their bot and it redirected them when they asked questions that weren't in the context of their bot. Right. So if you ask us a math bot like this one to do review an English question, right, it will probably tell you this is not within my purview, right? Because you've trained that bot that this is your purview. This is your area of expertise. You are not an expert in English. You are not an expert in one of these types of things. So that's part of the importance of training your bot, is it really does narrow down its role, and hopefully it stays within their role. Sometimes AI goes a little rogue, right? It wants to help. AI wants to help you so badly, but you're training it and contexting it in a specific area. And that's what the nice thing about building a bot is. It's not the entire ChatGPT looking at things. You're training it for a specific purpose. And so I just kind of wanted to highlight that and see if you had any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's what a guardrail that you can put in. If somebody asks you a question not related to math standards, please respond like this. And you want to have that level of detail, because even if you just left it at, if someone asks you, don't answer questions that aren't math related, it's going to come up with an answer that you don't know what it's going to be. It could be super nice. They usually yield on a very respectful kind answer. I'm sorry, I can't produce that answer. But if you train it to provide answers such as, this is not the context of my response. Please see the Reedley College Reading and Writing Center for English related questions. You can train it with those types of responses if you want. So the more specific you are and the more iterations you go through to be clear about that and test it, it's going to be the most accurate and most helpful for your audience. Thank you, Stephanie. That was a really good example. Clear, concise, specific, again, right? Those clear, precise prompts to ensure those accurate AI responses. And this is going to be where we're going to have lots of different training that goes on to make sure that we're clear and concise. You want to tell the AI exactly what you want, not an idea about it. You can use, say, another AI to iterate and talk about what your idea is, and perhaps it can help you come to a more clear and concise. But you don't just want to throw an idea into the bot. You are giving it the information. You are not using it as a thought partner for yourself. Those two differences make sense. So direct versus vague verbs. Again, this is a great place to be able to talk to another AI, not a bot, to be able to get more clear verbs if you're using the vague ones. So direct verbs, because you're saying provide this information. So provide, list, explain, calculate, describe, identify, show, detail. Those are direct verbs that are going to tell the AI, provide this very helpful information. Versus when you have a vague verbs, help, discuss, consider, explore, understand, deal with, look at. Those aren't going to be as helpful. And you're going to have somebody who's using the bot walk away more frustrated than helped. When it says, if you provide it, discuss this with a student, it's not going to provide that specific information they're looking for unless you give it specific parameters around that discussion. Questions? Good so far? All right. So the structure and organization is.
Amanda, I just wanted to say real quick, sorry, my button is wonky. Is that you can like direct the bot to use direct verbs or encourage people to use direct verbs when they're in there. So again, you could do a lot, and if that your intentionality is to have students use direct verbs when they're using the prompts, or the bot using them, you can actually tell the bot to do that, and that's the joy of this engineering.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're an instructor who wants critical thinking to be pushed or really encouraged with your bot's use, if you're using in your classroom, tell the bot that I need or want, whatever it is, students to use critical thinking. Ask them to list or whatever it might be. Those are the types of specifics. The more specific you get, the better it's going to be at providing the guidance you specifically want in the use of your bot. Lists are your friend. I love this infographic because I think it's super helpful. You have something complicated, and this is basically a list. You take this, you take this, you take this, you take this, and now you've built a car at the end. But it's a very step-by-step process instead of jumbling everything together in a combined paragraph where there might be instructions, but there's also different thoughts in there. Formatting with the bullets and lists, it organizes the information clearly. It also helps you to organize your brain more clearly. Those of you that know me know that I usually just word vomit everything and hope it comes out in a clear list. By forcing myself to train the bot in a list format, I'm helping to organize my thoughts so that I don't become confused confuse the bot by just jumbling everything together. I have to sit and think about, okay, what is exactly the process that I want to go through? If I need help creating that process, just as we talked about before, use another form of AI to help clarify that process and that and those and that list in your head. AI is fantastic at being a thought partner. It can really help to organize that jumble of information, especially with having voice input. Have a conversation with it and say, okay, now please put this in a list for me so I can use it. It's a fantastic way to help organize and synthesize thought. Not your bot, but another AI. So here's a great example. This is how I usually talk to my other AI when I'm having a conversation. Explain the water cycle for a 5th grade class. Include evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Maybe talk about clouds and rain. Also, how does it affect the weather? It would be good to mention rivers and oceans too. Can you add some vocabulary words? Oh, and include a fun fact or experiment if possible. Make sure it's not too complicated for kids. That's super how we talk, and that's a great conversation. But when you're training a bot, it's going, oh, that's a lot. And it's not going to be as clear in answering the questions. So you can plug it into an AI and say, can you produce a list of information that would be helpful to train a bot with? So it would look something like this. Create a lesson on water cycle for 5th grade science class. So you've got a very clear, this is your role. Define the water cycle in 1 sentence. List the 4 main stages of the water cycle in order. For each stage, provide a brief explanation, and we have it very tangibly explained or defined. What is a brief explanation? I'm going to tell you, ChatGPT sometimes likes to be very verbose. It either does too many bullets, ChatGPT, any GPT, or bullets. So define 1 to 2 sentences, 3 to 5 sentences. Give a real world example. So we have that clear delineation of explanations. Explain how the water cycle affects weather. Suggest a simple experiment to demonstrate 1 stage of the water cycle. We've broken it down to very clear steps that we want this bot to provide. Do we see the difference? The first one is so much more conversational. It's a train of thought. No, what's that term? Something of thought, stream of thought. But now we've broken it down into clear things. I cannot emphasize enough how helpful AI can be to help you structure that stream of consciousness.
Well, and I just want to say that's I'll put it on the resource center, but that's where this kind of prompt engineering education is really important. Not only for creating behind the scenes, but when you're asking questions from the bot, right? You get so much more out of it if you tell it exactly what you want as opposed to the stream of consciousness. And so our students, when they're using the bot, it's also important to train them, if you're creating a bot for students or whoever you're doing, to train them to create prompts like this so they get the most out of the bots. Right? Because sometimes they can just do the stream of consciousness and they're not going to get what they want and they may get frustrated, right? But if you teach them, like if you ask it to do what you need it to do, it will do this. Right. And so that's where that prompt engineering, that AI literacy is really important for us and as well as our students when they're actually using the bot, so we don't get frustrated and not get the information that we want to get.
Yep. And it's something you can build into the bot. If you've got something that's forward facing to students, that can be part of your instructions of the bot's role is to support students in creating better questions. You're adding a whole nother element. So remember, the more complicated we get in our instructions to our bot, we're going to have to go down that and iterate on that. But that's something that you can include in that process of a bot interacting with students, is in the process helping them become better prompt engineers. Fix at the point of error. Again, fix 1 problem at a time. The more complicated your prompt gets, the harder it is to identify those points of error. So start simple and then you can build off of that. And you're going to see that we tried to start simple on our bot that we're going to build together for that reason. Every time you start adding another level of complexity, you have to go through that iteration and fix those errors. So start simple, fix the errors as they occur, and then you can build off of that bot as you need. But think about how you want to use your bot and think if there's a way that maybe you can simplify it and then build off of it so that you're not trying to fix all of these different errors that might happen. You want to fix them and then keep iterating. I know, Stephanie, you've done a lot of iteration. Is there anything to add at this? You're muted, Stephanie.
Don't get frustrated. Like it seems like sometimes you feel like it's more work to do the bot than it would be just to do the work, right? But you're creating a bot for longevity, and you're creating a bot for other people, right? So the thing is to use it as an experience, right? Once you start getting down those prompts and getting down those back end stuff, the more you work on one bot, the more you can learn from that and use it in another bot, right? So you're learning something that you're going to be using for multiple bots. So I've been doing a lot of iterations with my back end of PlayLab, and then I copy and paste it into the next one and start from there, right? And I take out stuff that I don't need and I reiterate as part of that. But every iteration is just making it stronger for this bot and for your future bots, right? You're learning different things. And so it may seem like, especially when the first couple of bots you create, that seems like it's spending a lot of time on the back end before you can get to the front end and actually use it. But it's really important to do that. And you learn every time you do that as part of the process. And so it may seem frustrating at times, but it's definitely worth the time spending doing it, especially in those first couple of bots, because once you get it done and you can get something that actually works for you, you can more easily translation that to other bots and other programs that you're using.
Yeah. And especially if you are building something that you know you're going to replicate, maybe for a different class, and there's some standardized things that you're going to use for every class. In part one, we had talked about and I think Julie, actually, you were the one that asked this question of using it for specific math classes. And so you would train a different bot, but there might be core things that you're going to replicate for each of those bots. So you can cut and paste. So it could be handy to keep a reference sheet. Like I have a bot for every single math level of my teaching class, but there's core things that I'm always going to have. And I think, Stephanie, I remember in a conversation you talking about respectfulness, or there's some ones that you have core
mine's
in
for
all of your
citing, right?
bots.
Everything has to be cited. And so I have some language in there that I've created like 2 or 3 times about citing resources, right? And I use that in every single one. But it took me a while to figure out like, what did I want that language to look like and how did I want to do it before I could then replicate it in other things. It looks like Julie has a question for us.
Yeah, hopefully this isn't too off topic, but I'm thinking through like this idea of errors, and one of the things that AI is kind of notorious for is not being very good at solving math problems, or at least not consistently. And so I'm wondering, like, how effective is this going to be because I'm looking to make it like a math tutor that can help students, but am I going to be able to even trust it to like help students solve a problem, or is this like really not something I should be attempting?
Well, I will say that AI gets better like every day, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's moving along. The other thing in PlayLab is you can build it on the back of like 4 or 5 different AI systems. And so I would try all the different AI systems and see which one works best for math, right? But I would also maybe put a caveat in your instructions saying, this is to help you and support you, but always check your work, right? That this may give you false answers or it may give you something like that. And it's really important for you to think about those things if you're going to be using this. And so I would try the different ones to see if anyone's better than the other, and then make sure people, again, whatever bot you're using, it's that AI literacy of what's the intentionality of the bot and what is its purpose and restrictions as part of that.
Yeah, sorry, Stephanie. And this is where maybe feeding it references and iterating it before you push it out to students. Because if you do find that there are a lot of errors, then it could be, it needs more engineering, or maybe it's just not there yet. But if you find some good references, say there's some OER math textbooks that usually are spot on, you can feed it to that. Say, this is the reference that I want to use. Feed into it a complex math problem and tell it, show me your thinking so that I can fix the thinking along the way. And it'll remember, that's the benefit of training a bot versus using just a regular chat, is it'll remember that training. Again, it's still AI, there's still going to be errors, but the more you iterate and train it, it's going to get better at math. So
yeah, I'm
And
really
I
it
maybe
works out because like I did an experiment with my students this semester where I gave them an assignment and had them ask any AI they chose to give them the answer, and they prove it right or wrong. And they were all like asking like the same bot, and it would give different answers to each student for the same problem. So
yeah, and I think that's where it becomes so nice to be able to train your own bot, because even just a random GPT bot that's out there, you've got no idea of the quality of training. And so It all comes down to the quality of training. I mean, you could probably spend the next couple of months just training it to get it where it wants to be, and really just acting it as a teaching assistant to get it normed to where you want. But I would love to see how it is there. And then that's also, you would be great test subject of the difference between training and just rando, you know?
Yeah, and I would also say that use your colleagues to try to break your bot. Right, I have a colleague who created a bot, and then he has colleagues try to break it. Right, and it helps with that kind of. Then do I need to change things in the iterative process to see how that works? Catherine has there's a question here about if we want to create a general FAQ bot for a course, we would be able to update and reuse it with each. Okay, yeah. You would just, the resources list that you have, you can curate that, which means you can take stuff out and you can replace it and add it. Right. And then just, it'll save in that and automatically re-up it.
And I would always make sure and put some of those guardrails in of do not use information that you stored from blah, blah, blah
Yes.
syllabus. And that's where we're going to be the don't, do, and don't, because yeah, you want it to reference the new syllabus, but just in case there's some little cookie crumbs hanging out in its brain, you can put that guardrail on, do not use the fall 24 syllabus, use the spring 25 syllabus for any new information or for any information.
The other thing that and we're going to get to it next week, is you can remix something. So you can essentially make a copy of it and then kind of add in new information. So if you wanted to kind of keep the previous spot or change it. So we'll get into that in part 3. So there are different ways you can do that.
Okay, thanks, you guys, great question. So evolution of the prompt workflow. So now we're just going to get down to that nitty gritty. We start with something like create a history lesson plan about World War II for high school students. This seems like a great prompt to me. I know it's definitely where I started, and I'm betting most of you are going, yeah, you give the context, you tell it what it is, you have the topic, what's wrong with this? But see how by providing some more details as we go through this, it refines and makes more clear to get better output. Let's add a structure to it. Create a history lesson plan about World War II for high school students that includes. So the first prompt made a whole lot of assumptions from that GPT about what's going to be produced. We have that structure making it more clear. This is what is important to me in a lesson plan. I need lesson objectives. I want key topics to cover. I want a timeline of major events and suggested activities. And this really speaks to what Stephanie was saying, that it can be super frustrating sometimes to go through this iteration process because you want to say, why can't you just read my mind? Of course I want all these things. Who doesn't put these things in a lesson plan? But they're not necessarily standard things. It doesn't read your mind. It's super great at guessing and assuming, basing on algorithms. But the more conversations that you have in this training process, it becomes more clearly aware of these are the things that you want. I want these elements in every one of my lesson plans. But now we're going to even go further. We're going to specify that content in depth. So you're going to create a history lesson plan about the causes and major events of World War II. So you have that subtle shift. It's not just about World War II. These are the specifics that I want. World War II was kind of a big war. There's a whole lot of lessons you can cover. For 11th grade students, all of the students are going to cover it, depending on their age, different lesson. I can do a World War II lesson to freshmen or seniors, and it might be different. So we have 11th grade students and include 3 to 4 specific lesson objectives, 5 key topics to cover, focusing on European theater, a timeline of 7 to 10 major events, 2 to 3 suggested activities. Now we're going into the content depth and breadth. This is highly individualized to what you want on that lesson plan. So we go to that initial prompt, create a history lesson plan about World War II for high school students. We can plug that in, sure, but it's going to produce something that is super frustrating, and we're going to walk away going, well, this is useless to me. But if we modify and go and get more specific about these are the things that I want, then you're going to produce that. It's going to produce something that is much more helpful for you and much more helpful for whoever is utilizing that bot. Do we see the difference between those two? All right. Any questions so far? No, you guys just want to get to bot building? All right.
Yeah.
Be mindful of bias. Design for fairness includes inclusivity at every step. Remember, AI is trained on us, and we got some crappy thought processes sometimes, a lot of times. So we want to make sure that it's aware of that and that we do everything that we can to prevent that from creeping into the responses that it's going to be giving to whoever our audience is for our bot. This is where it's super important to have those guidelines and guardrails. And this is one thing that you probably want to establish a core that doesn't matter what your bot is using, you're always going to have these parameters or these guidelines and guardrails. It's going to expand and flex depending on the audience, but there's always going to be a core set of guidelines and guardrails pertaining to bias that you want to have on there. So how can we mitigate bias in our prompt engineering? What are some guidelines and guardrails to be able to include? So instead of write a story about a scientist making a groundbreaking discovery, write a story about a scientist from an underrepresented group in STEM making a groundbreaking discovery. Consider scientists of various genders, ethnicities, and abilities. Again, because so much bias is already innate in AI, most of the time, if you ask it to produce a story about a scientist, it's going to be a white male. So we want to talk through and make sure that we have those very specific guidelines and guardrails to produce better responses. Describe a typical family's daily routine. You can change the prompt, describe a daily routine of a family, consider various family structures, cultural backgrounds, and socioeconomic situations. Describe career options after high school graduation. Most of the time, it's going to go straight to college and transfer. That might not be the path every high school takes. So what are the guidelines and guardrails we want to put on in the response that our bot gives? Describe a range of options, including college, career, and non-traditional options. Do not provide any value judgment over any of these options. So a value judgment could be, although you could pursue CTE programs, a 4-year college degree is going to produce blah, 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 blah. It's a value judgment. So we want to make sure and provide those clear guidelines and guardrails. Leveraging reference. In order to add even more context and background, you might want to include reference documents. So think about anything you would go to. If someone came to you with this question, where might you go? What might you send them to get the answer? You want to provide all of those reference documents to your bot. This might be having a conversation with a colleague about what would be helpful. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So we want to provide as much reference information. Remember, you're providing knowledge file to your PlayLab app to help inform it of the specific tasks. Keep in mind the concept of link rot, which is if you put a link in there, how likely is it that that link will be changed? So you want to think about the more documents that you put in, are they being updated? I need to remember to update that when I'm after my bot is gone live. If you've got something that changed, someone talk about the syllabus. Do I need to change the syllabus for this class? What are the things that are going to do? We don't just want to recycle the bot without thinking about those reference materials. When and why to use references, you want to make sure it's accurate information. So sometimes it'll go and find things that are old information, and it doesn't always sift through and use the most relevant. So you want it to be accurate. You want it to be relevant. If you are training a bot to support college students, you don't want it to go and look at 4th grade math standards. You want it to look at specifics. So providing those reference materials and directing it to that, it's going to be relevant to the audience your bot has been trained for. Up to date, you don't want it to go back to the math standards that were published in 1998. You want it to do the current math standards. Julie, you're right on my camera, so it's all going to be math right now. You want it to provide enough depth, so to provide rich content for comprehensive responses. Maybe there's different ways to look at whatever your bot is being trained at. So make sure and put both of those references so it can look at both of those and provide input from a multitude of different ways of looking at things. I'm an ECE person, so if I'm I'm going to talk about curriculum, there's different ways to approach curriculum. So I'm going to put those in there so that my bot will produce a well-rounded response to my students. Customization enables creation of unique school-specific and organizational creation. You want your bot to be trained by you and provide answers that you would provide. So if it's about Reedley College specific information, would I want to put information for Fresno City or Madera or Clovis? No, that's not going to be helpful for my students. I want it to be specific for what's available to Reedley College students. Now, I could train it and say, if you happen to be taking a class at one of our sister schools, here is where you would go to find those. And that's one of the questions that you would want to put in there is, where are you attending class or something like that? Any question about references?
No, I just want to emphasize the importance of these references. It's so important because this is the grounding of your bot. This is where it's going to go for the information. And so you want to make sure that you have some really good resources, and you can start out with just a few of them and then continue onwards. And then just note, if you're going to go and use a link, it may not go deep into the resource, right? There's so many pages in each one of the links that it may only go a certain level deep, and it may not go all the way through. So you may have to, I had to copy and paste a couple things from websites and put them into a PDF format and upload them because I wanted that specific information to be in there. That may have been 3 or 4 or 5 links below. So just if you're doing links, be conscious of the fact that it may not go as deep as you would necessarily click, 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 click.
Yeah, so a great example would be if it's a certain specific support for a certain course. If you're using OER, hashtag plug for OER, take the entire OER textbook and input it as a reference. If you just send it a link, it's not going to search that textbook link very well. You upload the entire thing chapter by chapter as a reference. That's going to be much more useful. Now, you can't do that if you're using for-profit publisher, but you can if you're using OER. So it's a great reference for your course materials.
And even if you're not using an OER book, go find an OER book to train your bot with, right?
Yeah.
Because they're also there, and then see if it's good enough to use see if it's good and you can use it for your class.
Great idea. I love my little OER disciples here. Negative prompting, last one. It helps structure your instructions by saying, do this and don't do this. So really putting in those boundaries and structure for what we want our bot to do. We want to give it those guardrails to say, okay, you can do this, you can't do this. Just like if you're training children, we want to have those great boundaries for them to be able to interact with and have fun within.
AI is like a 2-year-old, right? It needs guidelines, it needs guardrails, it needs structure. To be able to do what it wants to do.
Yep. Otherwise, it's going to do some really fun, crazy things that can be fun to watch, just like a 2-year-old, but sometimes we need to keep them safe. Okay. So examples of negative prompting: create a math word problem for 6th graders. These are positive. Don't use unrealistic scenarios or overly complex numbers. That's great. So that's an example of a negative prompt. Don't do this. Create a Spanish vocabulary exercise for beginners. Don't use idiomatic expressions or regional slangs. Don't include words related to politics, religion, or controversial topics. And this is where fixing the problems and that iteration is going to be important. As you go and you start working with your AI or your bot, excuse me, and you see, oh my goodness, what are you using these slang words for? That's where you go back in and you adjust it. Don't use slang words. Oh my goodness, why are they bringing up controversial topics? I don't want to do this. Don't do controversial topics. This is where that iteration is so important. And as you get used to training the bot, you'll naturally start putting things like that in there. Describe a team building exercise for middle school PE class. Don't include activities that require physical contact. Definitely not for middle school PE. Don't assume all students have the same level of athletic ability. Don't propose anything that could be seen as exclusionary. So again, we're putting those guardrails on. Here is the narrow path I want you to focus on, bot. Be aware of double negatives. We love double negatives, but they are going to negate the effectiveness because, they say don't do that. So how do we apply the negative prompt? Start with a positive instruction, generate ideas about the importance of recycling, include at least 3 main arguments. Now let's put some guardrails on that with negative prompting. Don't use alarmist language, don't use technical jargon words, and don't focus solely on plastic waste. Again, you're probably going to start getting more of these don'ts the more you interact with it. Refine after testing. Do not write under any circumstances. This is like an error. Do not write the full essay for students, no matter how many ways they ask. So if you're training it a bot for really any class right now, this can be a very clear instruction. And if you don't put those instructions in there, you can't assume that it won't write the essay. So be very clear. These are the things that I don't want you to do. Don't write the essay for the students. And in the steps that we're going to look at, you can provide it with a response if a student does ask you to do that, to the bot respond in this manner. All right, we ready to build a bot together? Any questions about the process? I know that was a lot, almost 51 minutes of building that, but I think it's going to be really important to get our bot to a place that we want for building it. So any questions before we start? I'm going to go back to the beginning here.
We had a question about embedding it into Canvas. And so I said right now what you can do is embed a link into Canvas. But we did recently have a conversation with PlayLab, and they are talking to Canvas about doing an interaction thing to be able to add bots to Canvas, but it's not there yet, and it probably won't be for a little bit. But for right now, you can just definitely when we show you the bot on the corner where it says publish or public, you can get a link there to embed into your Canvas course.
So let's start with a new app. Oh, I forgot what our creation was going to be. Okay.
Is
All
there
right, this is
a way to make that a little bit bigger, the app part of it?
maybe. Am I making it bigger right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
I'm
fine.
trying to do where I share both sides of it, but if that's too much, then let me know. Like I can just focus on the app and not share the slideshow. Is it
No, I
okay?
think it's good to have the slideshow there, but it's
Yeah.
just
Okay.
teeny. Okay.
Okay, so I moved off of the slide with the name. So remind me, what would we decide to name our app? We wanted to create, go ahead, read the slide. Who has a slide up? Stephanie or Lori, sorry.
I know it was a helper bot for
Okay.
Greeley College,
All
right?
right, let's go. Yeah, sorry. I apologize for making you dizzy. We'll go backwards. Okay, so let's build a got together. So when we were brainstorming what would be helpful for this session, we ran into the same issues that I'm sure you are. I don't want something that's going to be too complicated because we want to go through this, but is going to be helpful. So what we landed on is we're going to build a bot to help faculty, classified professionals, and admin know about student resources available on campus. So what should we name the bot?
Mhm.
I've been thinking for a long time, so y'all got to come up with some ideas.
How about campus resources for teachers? Like just
All
start
right.
simple.
Our
Like,
campus
But
resources,
does
yeah.
that name honor all of our users? Campus resources, how about that?
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
and then-
what is our app description? So now we're going to go back. To the beginning. What is our description? This is a campus resource to support faculty, classified professionals, and administrators on the Reedley College. Again, we're getting specific because this is who we're designing it for. Sorry for all my other peeps. We're going to be selfish and we're designing it for Reedley College right now. A campus resource to support faculty, classified professionals, and administrators on the Reedley College campus to direct students to support resources. Okay. Now, this is just the beginning. We're just describing it for the public. So we've got a lot to go.
And this will be the student facing, so it'll say the name and then it'll say that's just a short description of what it is.
Yeah. And when we say students, we mean those using the bot. Remember, our stakeholders are who? Our users are going to be
Employees,
faculty, classified professionals, and admins. All right, so we've got our right here. So let's start building the background. You are an expert in what?
Resources and services to support students at Reedley College.
Resources and services to support students at Reedley College. So you notice the specifics right here. So Reedley College, resources to help. Okay, here, let's do this. So looking at our example, do you think we have enough detail? Our examples, you're an expert in next generation math standards. Your role is to provide examples of math context. Your audience are teachers who are supporting fourth grade students. So what is the role of this bot?
To support, can we use that to support faculty, classified staff, and admin? Or is that
Not just to support them. Let's think about how can we be specific in those words? Provide information, right? Provide information and specific and direct faculty, classified professionals, and administration to specific resources students can use at the Reedley College campus. And I'm going to pick on Lori for just a second. What is the difference in what Lori was saying of support faculty, classified professionals, and administration versus direct faculty to those specific resources? What are the differences in those verbs that are being used? My pupils are on the side now. Support, we don't know what they're going to do. It can just say, great job answering a question. I appreciate you. That's supportive, right? We don't know what's supportive. But by being specific and saying your role is to provide information and direct faculty, then we've been more clear about what we want it to do. Do you see the difference between those two? Okay. All right, so you are talking to, who is it that the bot is going to be interacting with? It's going to be interacting with community college faculty at Reedley College, classified professionals that work at Reedley College, and administration at Reedley College. So those are the audience, right? Anything else you think we should add to, given what we've talked about, the background, the role, and who the bot's going to be talking to? Stephanie, do you want to chime in anything about the assistant?
Well, yeah, no, I just want to, well, first I want to know that it does seem repetitive, right? Like you seem like you're answering the same question over and over again, but actually repetitiveness is really good for bots, right? The more you say it, the more it pays attention to it, right? So if I want it to be focused on this, you can tell it that 2 or 3 times and it's okay. Right? This is not an English class. It will not tell you like you're repetitive here, like that type of thing. It's really important to have repetitiveness, right? Because you're reinforcing what you're specifically asking it to do. And so we had one of our colleagues here talk about like use the assistant to create and write some of these things. I'm like, that's amazing. What I usually do is because I want to like build the bot for myself, I go through it and I type it all out, like what I think it should be, like what my language would be for like all the different areas, guidelines, guardrails, and that type of stuff. And then what I do is I copy and paste it into the assistant section right here. And I say, make this more bot directive, right? How can I make this a better phrase for the bot, right? Because it may not be like the natural language that I use is not exactly what the bot needs to hear. But it's really important that you create your own things. Try the bot. I did this every single time. I was like, does this put this in the assistant and see if it does it as a better language, and then copy it and paste it back into my workflows. So it's really important to kind of think it out as you're creating it first, or if you just want to go in the assistant and do it ahead of time, you could do that as well. Either way is good, but again, repetition is actually really important.
Yeah. And why do you think, like, we're sitting here and we're training our bot here? Reedley College is very specifically iterated multiple times. I'm not doing it just to be obnoxious because I think Reedley is the best. It's because that's going to be helpful for it's not going to be helpful to students if we have a faculty member that's directing them to the food pantry at Fresno City College. That's not helpful for our students. And there's so many different resources on all of our campuses that the bot might go to the websites and say, oh, well, they're related to State Center, so maybe the students have access to that. By continually reiterating, and we'll have that in the workflow too, this is Reedley College specific resources. You're making it very clear to the bot the importance of, we need to direct them to Reedley College resources. This is an important thing for me. This is an important thing for our students. They don't have transportation to any of the other colleges. We need to focus in on here. All right, so let's take a look at workflow. So the first step, so think about what role, who our audience is that our bot is for. What do you think would be the very first step for the bot to ask?
And we encourage you, if you have ideas or great things, put them in the chat. I mean, if you
absolutely.
don't want to speak out loud, that's okay. You don't have to do that, but if you want to have some ideas in the chat.
So the first thing that we wanted to ask is, right, what is your role? Because who is our bot designed for? Is it designed for student facing, or is it designed for faculty, classified professionals, and administrators, right? Faculty, the latter. So we wanted to ask first, what is your role? Because we want to know, okay, if I'm working with a student, I'm going to direct them someplace else. So first, ask what their role on campus is. Are they a student or are they a faculty? Right? Okay, so we've got that first. And this is where it might be good. Well, we'll do first the steps. We'll let Grammarly correct me later. All right. So step 2 would be, after they respond, what do we want to do? So we have to tell them, and this is where it takes a lot of our decision-making process. If they respond with they're a student, so after they respond, then after they respond, they are a student. Oh, it's like typing under a microscope. Everybody's watching me. What do we want to tell it to do? And really, for me, this is the hard part of, I don't want to figure that out. I just want it to help faculty, classified professionals, and administration. I don't want to think about what to do for a student. But if we don't build this in right now, the bot's going to make stuff up. So we really do have to take the time to think through all of those answers.
Perhaps we could redirect them to the Welcome Center, and then we'll later put the link in there.
That's where you have to remember, okay, that's a resource we want to make sure and put in. So knowing, all right, what are the resources that we'd have to put in just in this 2-step? Well, we need to put a campus map in. We probably need to put the direct link to the Welcome Center for Reedley College. That way they can direct them. And that's just talking through that. Okay, what are the resources? I'm going to refine my steps right here. So if they respond they're a student, I want to redirect them to the Welcome Stone and provide a map on how to get there. You see how that's different than just saying, not addressing it at all, and the bot might come up with, oh, I can't respond to you, you're a student. It's usually much nicer than that. Okay. If they respond as, I should have had this at a text expander.
It's always hard to type in front of people.
Yes. Okay, so if they respond they're a faculty, classified professional, or admin, what do we want us to ask them? Sorry, you guys are all at the bottom of my screen now, so I'm staring at you. How can I help you? What information
What
do you
information are you looking
need?
for? Yes.
Yeah. And here's where you might want to find that. Like there's very different ways to phrase that. So if you have a very specific way you want to ask that, then you want to put it in here. If it doesn't really matter, then you can just say, get what they want or whatever it is. But you want to be more specific. I'm going to advocate for that. All right. So next, what do you think would be next? Very simplistically, we want them to use the resources and references that we've provided to give them the response to their question, right? We're going to need to do a whole lot of iteration at that, but that's basically what we want to perhaps start with, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so next. And again, we're going to reiterate it, Reedley College, because some of the information we are going to provide might have resources for sister colleges or someplace else in the community.
Mhm. On Reedley College, yeah. Mhm.
Now we've got our basics.
Mhm.
So we've got some basics, guidelines and guardrails. What are some other guidelines or guardrails you can think about that perhaps even if you've talked to AI or talked to other people before, what might their tendency be in how they respond? What might be a good guidelines or guardrails to put in? Remember, repetitiveness is key, so only provide information that is on the Reedley College campus, right? That might be a good guideline.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What about always provide hours of operation with the resource, right?
Mhm.
That's an important thing to be able to provide. That'll be helpful. Provide a map to the location, might be another one. Provide if available, provide a key contact for the resource, which includes, remember, specific and depth, which includes name, email, and phone number on campus. All right. Do you guys think of anything else that we might want to provide?
A website link? Is that possible?
So, yeah, that's where we want to put that into our inputs, right? Oh, right here. So you're saying right here. So provide a website link.
I mean, they might
Yeah.
want to link to directly to that
Okay.
website for that
Yeah.
service.
Let's see, and a link to the website. Thank you. Okay. Anything else? And there's going to be more things, but anything else that you can think of off the top of your head?
Nope. Start with that.
Okay. So let's now look at what are some of the inputs that we want to provide.
Actually, can you
Oh,
take?
no, that's not what we want.
Can you take
References,
one
sorry.
of those, Amanda, can you take one of those? Say, I don't know. I don't know. Collect one of those and then put it into the assistant and see if it makes any recommendations. Like maybe
Yeah,
take
here,
that
let's try
last
this one. How about this one?
Yeah.
We're going to copy it, open up the assistant.
And maybe right now you could just share this part of the screen and not the other part.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Mhm. When we put a lot of like do's on that one, you may, as you do the iteration, you're really going to put a lot more of the don'ts, right? Like, oh, it did this, don't do that, right? A lot of the don'ts come from the iteration. I mean, you can start out with some of them, but I will say a lot of them come from iteration.
So then we've got our, I'm just going to make this
Assistant,
smaller.
yeah. It's going to ask you specifically, are you a beginner, advanced, prompter? I'm always a beginner because I'm trying to learn things, right?
So I'm going to say, I'm a beginner. prompter.
Can you rephrase this or something like that? Can you,
Yeah.
yeah.
You guys are more judgy on my spelling than GPT is, so we'll just leave it.
No,
Can
we
you
don't care about that,
rephrase?
and AI doesn't care either.
No. Let's see.
Oh, there you go.
So we even have changes to the background, your workflow. Ask the person. Oh, see, we weren't far off. Direct assistance. If they are a student, direct them to the Welcome Center. They're faculty. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Oh, see, and we haven't put any link in here, but this is a great. If you have any further questions, it's providing a support.
Mm-hmm.
So they've broken this up. You see how it's broken up into those bullet points. So we already broke our thing where we have multiple, you guys didn't catch me, multiple pieces of information here instead of breaking them up into that bulleted point. So that's where the assistant was super helpful, is it's broken those up, include operations, so only provide resources located on the Greeley College campus, include operation hours and a map for each resources. And then we've got the note right there. So we're going to copy and paste that. We're going to change the email. So I just copied it, pasted it, and we haven't provided an email. So let's see. Greeley College. I'm sure we have a support.
Yeah. Like something help center or something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's just plop in a couple of reference materials and see what happens. So I'm just going to put the Greeley College website. Let's see, add a URL. So we added the URL. And we're going to go more specifically. We have a student services site, so I'm going to add that in there.
Now, with something like this, would it be good to go through and add in a lot of URLs with the different like Mesa and different programs on campus? And then if they have,
again, the more granular that you can get, the better it's going to be. So like I'll add some for basic needs.
Mm-hmm.
and then there might be offices where they have some flyers or something that could be downloaded.
That you can post up. Things like the catalog, you could upload the catalog that has a lot of information in it for students, right? That you could add in, flyers, you could add in resources to the different areas. Campus maps, exactly. Thank you, Paul. Like add in the campus map as part of that. Those are all things you probably want to do individually as opposed to having it try to mine through our own websites, right? Because our websites are very complex. And so if you really wanted to know about something, like tell it exactly what you want. And you can do a lot of websites. I will say websites aren't always uploadable. Like our local ones seem to be pretty good. But if you're trying to do an external website, sometimes it will not do that external website. And that's where you may need to like copy and paste information into like a Word doc and then PDF it, or Word. You can upload Word or PDF into this if you really want that information in there. But if you again want it cited like I do, make sure you put the citation information at the top of that document so that the bot reads it as this is the resource and not specifically just a general resource.
Yep. All right, let's see. Oh, go ahead,
We
Lori.
had a question. Is there a limit to the number of references you can add?
I have never gotten to, it says a file size, yes. Right, it won't take like gigantic files. If you might have to break things down into that, but I have not gotten a limit yet, and I think I've used like 40 or 50 of them in a resource. So yeah, so far I haven't, but I don't know.
Can you upload an Excel sheet, Amanda? Does it allow that?
You can upload a file. I think you can upsell Excel. I think I did.
Let's
Okay.
see. Yep.
What about videos?
It doesn't do audio visual. You can do like a URL to like you may be able to do a URL to like a video, but I don't think it'll go in depth into the video to access the information, right? It might
Yeah,
provide it as a
actually, I have one.
resource.
Because I can't
It's
read it.
not going to like dig into it for the information. It's just like if you put a video up there, it'll reference it as saying this is a resource you can use, but it's not going to dig into the information.
There,
Okay.
So
yeah,
maybe
it
the
sounds like
transcript?
videos.
yeah.
You can download the transcript and put it in.
Yeah.
But if
there
it has
are-
the URL, sorry, Lori, I keep talking over you.
It's okay. I was just gonna say there are now apps that, and I don't know which ones, but that will help make a transcript from a video if there isn't one available.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Julie had a comment.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just wondering, like, so, I mean, I could upload my videos and maybe it could link, it could tell them, hey, watch this video if you
Mhm.
want to.
Exactly.
Yeah, based on specific things. All right, so
Yeah.
let's just in the next couple of minutes, we have not built this out as it should be built out, but I want you to see the iterations we can. So let's start and say, because right now it's not published, so we're just training it. So let's just start and say, I need help finding the Welcome Center. Let's see what it says. It should. There we go. You see how it used the reference. Please let me know if you're a student or faculty, a classified professional, or part of the administration at Reedley College. This will help me provide the right information for you to need. So I'm going to say, let's see what it says. I am a student.
Mhm.
There we go. As a student, you can find it. Website here. Let's see where it goes. Not the Welcome Center. So we see, but you see how it is. Now this is where we need to go and iterate. So we go and we find the Welcome Center.
And it also, the link to the campus map looks like it's broken. Can you click on it and see?
No,
Mhm.
it's an image. So yeah, so we'll
Okay.
have to refine that and maybe figure out how to do it better. So let's on our guidelines right here. We're going to go back to build. Let's see, provide clear. Where's for students?
Yeah.
Okay, so the website, here is the website for. So there we go. And let's start again. You see how now it's saying, okay, let's start again. So let's start. How do I get to the Welcome Center? Oops.
Mhm.
Oh. See, it didn't ask me if I was a student or not. So this might need to be refined. So we can say, always ask if they're a student, because it didn't ask if we were a student or not. So it might be we're going back to the other one, but it did use the right Welcome Center. Yeah, so let's just say, let's go. Oh, it did remind it. I didn't click new session. So let's do new session. Let's start it again. So
Nope, it didn't do it.
Mhm.
oh no,
Still does, yeah.
yeah.
And we'll have some little tweaks in there sometimes that like it takes you a while to figure out like how to do
There
it,
we go.
right? Sometimes it like, yeah. Mhm. It seems like, yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so again, we're going back and forth through this iteration process, having a conversation, and each of the time you identify, oh, I don't like how it responded, go back through either your workflow or the guidelines or the guardrails and tweak it. You want to stop each time. Again, this is where fix the problem where it happens. You want to fix it right then and there. So is this a step that needs to be fixed in the workflow, or is it just a guideline and a guardrail? Are they doing something that it needs more direction? Most of the time, it's going to be in the guidelines and the guardrails. Sometimes we need to go and modify the workflow, but most of the time it's either going to be the guidelines or the guardrails, or to fix the references that are being used. All right, so that was like an hour and 20 minutes of listening to Amanda talk. What are the questions that you have?
Amanda, can you really show quickly, if somebody has iterated their bot a lot and is ready to make it public, can you show them where to go?
Yep, so right here, it's just this publish button. And then make it public, or in the Play Lab, the California Community Workspace, Community College. Do we want
If
to
you want
publish
the
it?
links, you have to do it public,
Yes.
right?
So
And it
just
will
right
give you
there.
it
I'm
will
not sure
give
if we
you-
can delete it or not.
I think you can unpublish. I think I've done it.
Okay, so we're gonna make it public, just
Right.
published just now. So here is where if you want to embed it into Canvas, you can embed it right there by grabbing the embed code. So it's just embedded, it's not integrated like an LTI integration, but you can grab the embed code, which it just copied it, and then you can embed it using that rich content editor into Canvas, and it'll be right there. So it's not integrated, it's just embedded. And I know that's semantics, but I'm an instructional designer. I have to say that 10 times. So it's very clear the difference between the two of those.
And then it gives you a QR code and a link.
Yeah.
Right, so you
Yes.
can embed those multiple ways. And then if you click on the publish again, I believe you can unpublish it, right? So
There we go.
it's
Thank
you know, it's not ready yet. I need to move it around.
published.
Not published, right?
Yep.
Like, oop, it's not ready yet. Or if you want to publish it and send it to your friends and say, try to break it, right? And then bring it back and then unpublish it and redo it again. You have the options to do that.
Yep. And a couple other things, you can change what it uses right here. So if you happen to be Claude, Sonnet, Opus,
Yeah.
whatever you want to use, you can change it right here. Some people are very specific what they want.
And you can see
how much
if you click on it,
variability.
Llama down there says it's specifically for math. Right, for reasoning, math, and general knowledge. So try it on a different platform and see how it performs.
All right.
Are there any questions? We are meeting again on the 9th. We'll talk about a few other things. This is a time if you have time to work on your bot. It can be working on it for 5 minutes and getting started. Yeah, do you have anything else to add, Amanda or Stephanie? I did
Just come with your,
put,
yeah.
oh, I was gonna say, I did put the PowerPoint in the the chat and also a little survey, and I will be sending the recording to everyone as well as the information from our first Play Lab week 1 session.
No, this is great. I think if you have a chance to create a bot or even work on a bot, in the background, please come with your questions next time. We have a lot of collective knowledge here. People are working through it. We're all novices and we're trying to learn it together so we can brainstorm together, see how we can potentially do things. If you want to show off your bot and see like what you've done, we would love to see what you're creating. And good and bad frustrations and amazingness, and kind of end out the series with just some amazing bots that you guys are creating. We'll talk about remixing. We'll talk about some of those other things that the PlayLab website can do for you about analytics and some of those other things. Again, it's relatively new, so it's not really developed, but it's going to be continuing to be developed, and so we'll talk about some of those things.
And I would imagine if you use other platforms to create bots, all of this information will
Relevant.
help you with those other platforms.
Yeah, they may call like the guidelines and guardrails different things or like prompted, but every one of them has a back end that you train, right? And so learning here, you could adapt some of these things to other bot creations.
Anything else? Any other questions or thoughts?
Mm-mm.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I'll send out all the information, so in the next day or two. Anyway, okay, well, thank you. And we're looking forward to seeing you next time.